Hey everyone, I'm Michaela and I'm here today with a really sad video. I will apologise in advance because this is not at all going to be nice. I have a lot to complain about with The Ruby Circle by Rochelle Mead, which is the sixth and final book in the Bloodline series. This book let me down, man. This hardcore let me down. So it's not going to be a review. There's no point in telling you absolutely everything that's happened up until this point. You should only watch this if you have read the book and if you have some unfavourable thoughts towards it as well. I mean, obviously you can watch it if you liked the book and, let me know what you liked about it and how it satisfied you. But for me, this book was completely horrible. I really, really didn't like it. It's probably the worst book that I've read this year. So if you want to keep watching, do so. And these are all of my thoughts about the Ruby Circle. Okay, so first of all, Sydney's non-existent PTSD. Like, she went through some serious shit in Silver Shadows and she's just completely fine. The only sign that we sort of get that she doesn't like, that what happened to her wasn't cool, was that she can't really drink coffee without feeling slightly queasy. Like, that was it. Like, I was just like, no, you'd be having fucking nightmares. You'd be waking up. Like, these people held you captive. They drugged you. They tried to, reprogram your brain. In the first Bloodlines book, she says that that's her worst fear, is having someone fucking with her head. And just completely nothing at the end of this. Sydney still being grossed out by Adrian needing blood. He's your husband. He's a vampire. You married him. Get over it. She can get over being held captive by the alchemists, but she can't get over the fact that her husband needs blood every 2 days to survive. Eddie's beard being a plot point. Every single time Adrian would think of Eddie, he'd be like, oh yeah, Eddie and his beard. Who the fuck cares about Eddie's beard? I didn't care about it. I didn't need to be reminded of Eddie's beard every 23 pages. And always been called a mini Dimitri. I reread Vampire Academy, and in the Vampire Academy series, Dimitri is always regarded as the best guardian there is. Everyone should want to be a mini Dimitri. Rose should want to be a mini Dimitri. Oh, he's wearing his fiercest mini Dimitri face. Yeah, cool. I'd be wearing my fiercest fucking mini Dimitri face too if I was to fucking be one person facing down 50 people who wanted to fucking kill me. What? Villains made no sense because every single villain from the Bloodline series came together and they were nothing. How it was, I knew straight away that it was going to be Alicia who took Jill at the end of the book, but why would she give her to the Sun people? We didn't hear anything about her for 3 books, and then all of a sudden she comes back. We don't hear anything from the Sun people for 4 books, and then the alchemists are still breathing down Sydney and Marcus's necks, and it was just all of these villains just they could have just pulled their heads out of their fucking asses to get each other together and be okay, cool, we're really gonna destroy these people, but they didn't, because when Sydney and Eddie were in the compound fighting or whatever, and then they're okay, we need to break in and get the computer, and they just broke in and got the computer. There wasn't no one caught them and they just left. They were there for 10 pages. When this book was first announced, I was expecting it to be absolutely massive, especially after Silver Shadows, because Silver Shadows really felt like the filler book in this series. Last Sacrifice from Vampire Academy was huge. It wrapped up absolutely everything. It was so awesome. And then this was 240 pages less than Last Sacrifice. I completely understand that Rochelle Mead has been writing these books for a really, really long time. But just to not wrap it up properly, it was just sort of a disservice, because now she's dealing with fans all the time on Twitter being is there going to be another book? You've given us this magical snowflake child who is just the product of something that should never have happened. And she's oh no, there's no plans to write it as of yet. And it's just you could have not given them the kid. There could have just been no kid. You could have done some other really cool shit, but no. Now we've got this kid. Now you're going to have to deal with all of these people asking you when this book is going to happen. The thing about this kid, what was his name? Declan. So having him be created by 2 characters that we don't really care about, I didn't care about them. I thought that Neil was sort of funny when Adrian in Fiery Heart kept calling him the London Bridge chick who's just come along, and you sort of hear that there's a hint of a romance, and then that's it. It was just, and then there's a baby, and the baby belongs to Sydney and Adrian. Okay, that makes sense. It doesn't make any sense at all. From the first time that we meet Sydney in Russia, when she's talking to Rose, she says she wants to go to Europe. She says she wants to go to college. All of that is completely destroyed when she has this kid to look after. And at the end of the book, when she's telling Adrian, oh, I'm so content with our lives. No, you're not. You're not content working in this rinky-dink half-rate museum when you wanted to be eating pomegranate gelato outside of like the Colosseum or something. That was her dream and it's just completely gone. All of her life, Sydney has done things for other people. Eddie gets guardian duty like away from Jill as well. Like he's done all of this for Jill. Like he's, you know, torn apart the whole of like, you know, middle America to end up seeing Jill a couple of times a year because he has to be the guardian for Sydney and Adrian and the baby and Sydney's mother-in-law. So Adrian's mum is also living with them in this random house in northern Maine. Really? The other thing that I couldn't stand was Rose and Dimitri, and how he basically wore her down into marriage. Like, I never thought of Rose as being someone who would get married so young or anything like that. But then again, I guess I can see it because, you know, the Dumpiers, they can die at any time. That's the vibe you really get from these people. But also when Adrian's like, oh, you know, maybe this could affect Rose and Dimitri's future having kids. Let's just be real. I don't think that Rose wants kids. That's cool and that's fine. And I just wish that Rochelle Mead had put something in about that it's okay for women to not want children because women don't have to have children. This possibility that Rose is going to have a kid. How the fuck are they going to explain that? Like two Dompiers, like they're so high profile. Like basically in Vampire Academy, these people are celebrities. Like how are they going to pull this kid out of Rose's birth canal and be like, oh yeah, by the way, like we had a baby. How did you have the baby? She needed to do the split POV in the Fiery Heart because of what was going to happen and then with Silver Shadows. But in the Ruby Circle, sometimes I would have to go back and start reading at the front of the chapter again to see who I was actually reading because Sydney and Adrian, like I couldn't tell them apart towards the end. Like they both use this sort of flowery language. There was no difference in their inner dialogue. And that was a real problem, you know, when you've got the split POVs, you really need to keep that very separate and to have their thought patterns be different, but it was completely the same. And you know, they're just like, oh, I love so-and-so so much, oh, I just do anything for them. It's like, yeah, obviously, but you need to, eyes on the prize, you've got to find Jill. There was 3 different rescue missions in 6 of these books and they all had the exact same people in them. Like it was just like, you know, Rose and Dimitri just managed to get time off from guarding Lissa and Christian just to come and help save, you know, the damsel in distress or whatever. So that was the thing, like it was just every book that there was a rescue mission, it was all exactly the same people. You know, the person would be extracted and then everyone else would go in and you see none of the fighting. Like it was just sort of like, oh, okay, cool. Rochelle Mead, after this book came out, had a Twitter question and answer and someone said, oh, what happened to this just Strigoi vaccine from the Fiery Heart? And she was like, oh wow, I forgot all about that. It fell to the wayside with like all of the other action. Bitch, there was no action. There was no action in this at all. And she completely forgot something that she had already written about, which she admitted as well when she was talking about the Psyhounds from the very first Vampire Academy book, and we don't hear anything about them for like another 11 books. I don't get it. The other thing that we didn't hear anything about either from Last Sacrifice was Robert Deroe, who was Victor Dashkov's brother, who was like a crazed spirit user at the best of times. And you'd think that like, if I was like a crazy person who was like gone mad with spirit, I'd be trying to hurt the people who had killed my brother, like my only link to the outside world, because why not? You know, and that was the other thing. Like when Lee from the very first book, I don't know if you remember in Bloodlines, he was the one who was like dating Jill and he had been restored from Strigoi. Who the fuck restored him? Like just this random do-gooder spirit user running around restoring people. It didn't make any sense. Rochelle Mead in her question and answer also said that the law about needing a living relative, like Lissa needing Jill alive, which is why this entire series came to fruition. She said that it was like, it was abolished, but it kind of fell to the wayside in favor of action. I didn't see any action in this book. I saw Rose and Sydney battling a conjured demon, which that was another thing that we didn't hear about in any of the other books. that could be a thing. That's all I saw. I also saw them like, you know, hanging out with Marcus at some like stoner people's pad because it was real cool because like all they wanted to do was like eat Doritos and watch TV because, you know, that's just what like stoners do apparently. This book that we just got like a tiny little snippet of was the Moroi finally fighting, which we've been hearing about since Frostbite. Frostbite is the second book in the Vampire Academy series, so it's 10 books later that we're finally hearing that there's a couple of Moroi maybe having a little battle. Like, overall I was just really disappointed. I was kind of hurt as a reader. I wanted more. And I know, like, I get it. I get that Rochelle Mead has been writing this for so long, but give us an extra 200 pages, get rid of some of the shit that was there, and you could have had people shutting up. Like, people would not have hassled you for another book. If you ditched the baby, it would have all been fine. If you've watched this all, you deserve a medal and an ice cream. And I'd just like to thank you so much for dealing with my swearing, with my rambling, with my absolute rage at this shit, because, oh God, so disappointed. I'm so disappointed. I still love Rochelle Mead. I'm definitely going to continue reading her books. I mean, I love her Age of X series, which is more adult stuff. It's kind of a sci-fi type thing. She doesn't have a release date for the third book, but I love the first and the second. So you should check those out. I just feel like sometimes she just pushes herself too much. Like, she's like, yeah, I want to do 6 books. It's like, but you could have probably put it down to 3 or like 4 even. Let me know if you have read The Ruby Circle, if you shared my thoughts, or if you really liked the book, because if you really liked the book, I'm so happy for you. I wish that I was one of you people, but I'm really not. It's made me really sad. So thank you so much for watching. I hope that you have a really good day and that you read something better than how I felt about The Ruby Circle. Bye.